Well, well, well. You know, we're in for an interesting discussion when we're talking about Funimation possibly no longer being a thing. And that, well, let's just say we live in interesting times. Sadly, Hatman is not here today. He is dealing with a loss in the family, so he will be back next week. But I'll keep the whole thing running during this whole mess. Let's go ahead and get down to it. My name is Micah Curtis. Sadly, Hatman is not here, but regardless, welcome to the podcast anyway. Alright, so now for the difficulties of doing this show solo. There's not a lot to not a lot to play off of. So I'm going to do my best to at least play off of the chat and go from there. So thank you all for being here with me today, even though Hatman is not here with us. It's very much appreciated. So let's go ahead and get to the start. So, Elden Ring, my pick of the week this week. And you know what the weird thing is? I have played this game for how many hours now? 26.4 hours according to Steam. And what do you mean you can't hear me? My audio's coming through. I don't. Yeah, you got check to see if you've muted the stream somehow or something, because the audio's coming through. One quick thing, guys, just as a favor to me, if for some reason like you're not hearing audio, or you're not hearing, or the video feed is frozen or something like that, do me a favor and just ask the rest of the chat, hey, is Micah not able to be heard, or is it just me? Because whenever I see things like that in the chat, it really throws me off. So I'd greatly appreciate that if you could do that for me. Anyway, as I was saying, I played this game for 26.4 hours. And I really feel like this... excuse me. This isn't really... tonsil stone. This isn't really a... anything but a first impressions. And by the way, again, let me say this one more time. 26 hours, first impressions. This game is fucking huge. It's not anything I expected it to be, honestly. When they said, like, open world Souls, what I expected was there to be about 3, 4, or 5 major dungeons, and then there's a hub world in the middle, kind of like Dark Souls 2, you know? And it's just, those areas were just bigger than they were in Dark Souls 2, you know? And not the case. Holy fuck. There is what seems like 4 gigantic zones. And each of them even has like an underground area too, that is big in its own expanse. Plus apparently there's another endgame area I haven't even come close to touching yet. So the game is enormous, to say the least. And I'm absolutely taken aback every time I play it. Like, I just dive into it and I'm like, what the fuck am I even doing? And there's some positives and negatives to that, which I'll get to later. But, aside from that, the gameplay is very similar to any of the Dark Souls games, or I've never played Demon Souls, but how I would assume Demon Souls plays. I don't know if it's the biggest open world game ever. It's one of the bigger ones I have played. I'm pretty sure that the record for biggest open world game is like Just Cause 2 or 3. But then again, Just Cause 2 or 3, like those games have big maps that are honestly too big. Because there's like a whole lot of empty shit that's just sitting there. But anyway, back on topic. The gimmick for me, gameplay wise, was that the tools were a little bit different because the controls have been altered for an open world experience. Specifically, meaning it has a jump button. So the weird thing about it for me was, while I was playing it, I kind of felt like in some ways the gameplay had been opened up a lot, and in other ways it had been kind of shrunk down a little bit. And I'll get to that in a second. Visually speaking, it's gorgeous. The art design is... How do I put this? The art design is between... Oh, hold on one sec. Oh, thank you, Two-Face, for the follow. The art design of the game is somewhere between Berserk on one hand and A Song of Fire and Ice on the other. Which shouldn't surprise anybody because you've got Miyazaki as one of the writers on the project and George R.R. Martin on the other hand. So the fact that the two of them, that it's kind of feels like a meld of the two, shouldn't surprise anyone. You know, there's certain bits of kind of things that we're familiar with from the Souls games and from something like Berserk, which Miyazaki's a huge fan of. And then, of course, you know, a Western influence in design from Martin. Specifically, like, one thing you'll notice is the designs of a lot of the armors of certain regions that you go to feel like there's something out of Game of Thrones. It's not... And in a sense, it also gives you a feeling of, like, traversing from country to country, in a sense. One region has one style of armor. Another region has another style of armor. So on and so forth. So... But yeah, it's about as dark fantasy gets. And to be frank, when it comes to, like, if you're looking for the top dark fantasy stories in video games, or the top dark fantasy games in video games, it's been Souls games. You know, and Elden Ring is no different. In a lot of ways, Elden Ring feels like you could have called it Dark Souls 4 and it would have fit. But it is a whole new universe. So, so the art style is fantastic. The game, honestly, at points, as you can see with the boss right here, it's fucked up. It is, to be honest, it is jacked up. Very, very jacked up in regards to how it's done. Whoa! Thank you for the $25, Bray. No message. Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, we're definitely doing cringe today, and Brain gets top pick. But anywho, one path actually brings up a good point, is that there's a lot of style variety in the armors, too. You know, you don't really feel like you're retreading a lot of the same, you know, tropes from Dark Souls. It really feels like you're really diving into something new here. But needless to say, like, a lot of the areas, there's a lot of very twisted designs. And one thing that's a commonality I've noticed with this is amputation and essentially just limbs in general being melded. Aside from this jackass right here, which, by the way, is kind of interesting. I forget the name of this lord. Let me look him up real quick. But, he is the first of the actual lords that you have to fight. Godric the Grafted is his name. Oddly enough, a lot of people had a lot of problems with Godric here. I didn't. I beat him in one shot. Because what I did was I used the summon that was available, and then I also have a summon where I can summon 2 soldiers from that region, and then I used the Dragon Slayer, which is in the game, Guts' Dragon Slayer. I used that, and I tinged it with something that's called, it's basically like the like lightning paper and stuff like that you would get in other games, but instead it's a wax. So I use what's called blood wax, so that the weapon has a bleed effect. And I just went to town on him while he was distracted and just lit him up like he wasn't even there. But that's the interesting thing about this game and how it kind of feels like a normal Souls experience. You can play the game however you want. You know, my thing is I tend to be a melee guy. I really like melee combat in Souls games. It just vibes with me really well. Did I use the Dragon Slayer on a dragon? Yes, I did. And it's very effective. The Dragon Slayer in this game, the Greatsword, is very good. There are weapons that are technically better than it, but I have not found a weapon yet that breaks poise like the Dragon Slayer does. It will, like, there was one boss I was fighting where I hit it with 3 jumping strong attacks, and I broke his poise immediately. So, it's a dirty weapon. But anyway. But the big thing that you're going to notice is that whenever you play it, certain playstyles, in my opinion, are kind of easy mode. Specifically if you're a magic user. If you're a magic user, you're going to have an easier time in Elden Ring past sort of like the 10-hour mark than a melee user is. Because if you watched last night's stream, you'll see me talking to Xavier, and I was fighting my way through a tower of magic users, and I was struggling something fierce. And a lot of it is because magic is very, very good in this game. Having any attack that has an element to it is very good in this game. Which is why, like, the weapon I use now, I use the Dragon Slayer when I need it, but the main weapon I use now is another greatsword that has a bleed effect on it, that swings a little bit faster. And it's because it has that bleed element that I'm honestly progressing a lot better in the game now than I was before. So, that sort of stuff really comes in handy, because every boss that you fight at a certain point will actually have an element to their weaponry. I'm actually in the process of fighting the second holder of one of the what is his fucking name? He's one of the other holders of a piece of the Elden Ring, Radon, General Radon. And he fucking, he does attacks that, like, you start the fight, like, an entire field away from him. He's got a massive bow with magic arrows, or with lightning arrows, rather, and they kill you almost all completely in one hit. You know? And that is one thing that I will admit is kind of a problem that I have with this game. It is easily the hardest Souls game I've ever played. Which means it's harder than Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3. And that's saying something. Because Dark Souls 3 at points could be really fucking hard. and this game's even harder. And part of what makes it harder, and this is something that I would actually kind of count against it, is the open world. The open world in this game is a double-edged sword. It's really cool with just the fact that you can pick a direction and just go and do whatever you want, and see what's in that direction, go explore, have fun. The problem that you run into with it is that some areas, like the game, it's not like Skyrim where there's areas that scale with your level. Areas are basically hard capped. Like if you're at a certain level, you can't go in there without getting destroyed by everything. So what you really end up doing is you feel like you're in a maze with invisible walls. And then like you're just jumping forward, and then bam, you run into a wall. And then you start dying, you're like, well, can I get this? Or can I get past this? Well, no, I can't. So now I have to go back to the drawing board, go back to where I first started, and then try a different direction. And you keep going and keep going and keep going, and you basically go until you find the spot that you can actually progress in. And I will freely admit it's very frustrating. And it's something that I actually don't like about it. I honestly... Now, we'll have to see how I feel about it when I beat the game. But ultimately, what I'm thinking is that there is a possibility that the open world formula might actually work against this game as it goes on. We'll have to see. What I'm saying is, like, a lot of people have told me I'm getting close to kind of the midpoint. And basically what a lot of the midpoint is just trying to find out where the fuck to go. Because I think Maximilian had, like, the exact same problem. Is, like, he kind of hit that midpoint when you're, like, level 30 to 40 to 50 range, where you're like, well, now what the fuck do I do? And I finally have kind of figured out where I'm supposed to be going. One thing I will say also that I'm not a big fan of, I like the Ashes of War system in the sense that you can customize your weaponry to have certain abilities. The problem that I have is that it gives enemies with a shield too much of an advantage, because they can just sit there and block you all day, and the ability and breaking their poise requires you to either do a charged heavy attack or a jumping heavy attack, and you might break their poise. Might. Whereas in Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3, you had an ability that made it much easier to do that, and it's your kick. They took that away, and they made that an Ash of War. So I basically have to choose, do I want some crazy fancy ability that could really be a boon when I'm fighting multiple enemies, or the kick? I shouldn't have to make that decision, because kicking in Dark Souls games is just forward attack at the same time. And I don't understand why they got rid of it. It doesn't make any sense to me. I think it's a bad decision, personally, combat-wise. It makes it, honestly, tougher for melee users in combat. If you don't have a weapon that has kick, you can't fucking use it, you know? On the flip side, one thing I will say that I do like is the fact that bosses have poise that can be broken by things other than counters. For example, like I said, if I'm using the Dragon Slayer, like I used on Shithead right here, I broke his poise really quickly, and then I got a critical hit on him. And I would hit, back off. He would do his crazy fucking attack. I'd come back in, I'd hit him again, and his poise is broken. So that, on the other hand, is an interesting little upgrade in regards to Dark Souls, or from Dark Souls to here, is the ability to break the poise of certain bosses, making bosses, honestly, that would normally be a nightmare to beat a bit easier, and not as difficult for the player to play, because again, the bosses in this game are harder than any other Souls game I've ever played before. I would put them on level with some of the tougher fights in Sekiro. And Sekiro had some really tough bosses. So far what I'll say is that it's a really good game. It had some stuttering problems on PC, and they've started to patch it, and it's getting better. But you are going to see some frame drops if you are not using a card series that is a 2080 or better, from what I have heard. I have a 1080 in my gaming rig, so I get frame rate drops on occasion. It'll drop to like 35, and then it'll go right back up to 60, which is disappointing because Dark Souls 3 ran a lot better than this at launch, So there were some optimization problems, but needless to say, I do like it. It's not perfect. It's not best game of all time material in my opinion right now. My opinion might change as I continue to play it, but those are my first impressions. I would say if you're a Souls player, you're gonna really enjoy it. I'm saying if you want to get into Souls games, this is not a good place to start, in my opinion at least. But I could be wrong on that. I've been seeing people that that are first-time Souls players or aren't known for being Souls players getting into it and really enjoying it. Because like I watched Kiara play it, I watched Tofu play it, I watched Callie play it, and they seem to be really enjoying it. I don't know if it's Callie's first Souls experience. I'm pretty sure it's Kiara's. And I think like I've seen some of the other HoloLens girls play it too, and it's just like, okay, they're doing all right then. Maybe I'm wrong, but then again, a lot of them are using magic, so that might be why. But yeah, needless to say, if you're a melee player like me, it's gonna be trickier than doing a magic playthrough. It is fun once you get used to it. It's a very well designed world. It's very pretty. It's very fucked up. It's still a great dark fantasy game, but if you want to start on Souls, I honestly say start at Dark Souls 1. Get the remastered edition, because Blighttown actually runs at a decent frame rate on that one. And start there. But either way, I always tell people, like, you really, 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 really... I think everybody should at least try Dark Souls, or a Souls game at least once. Just because I think they're beautiful games. They're beautifully developed. They're a ton of fun once you get used to the play style, and they're classics. And this game may end up being a classic. We'll just have to see what happens. Well, they're classics except for Dark Souls 2. All right. Let's move on to Funimation. So this is an interesting one. I was not expecting this news. So, for those who don't know, Sony owns both Funimation and Crunchyroll. And now Sony is merging Funimation into Crunchyroll. We don't know what what all's going on with it. What we do know is that all of the shows that are on Funimation are going to be over on Crunchyroll, which of course means that, for people who are anime watchers, that's a lot less money to spend per month, because a Funimation subscription is $9.99 and so is a Crunchyroll subscription. So now you don't have to pay as much money, and basically what this is just going to mean for people who are Crunchyroll users is, like, there's going to be more stuff with dubs on there. A lot more Gundam. And yeah, it's an interesting time because we don't know what's going to happen here. The theory that I've heard from some people is that Sony possibly caught wind of a lot of the problems that Funimation has had over the last 4 or 5 years. Zeta will probably is going to get transferred over because Funimation had the streaming rights to it. We don't know what's going to happen to the people who are running Funimation. You know, we have no clue what's going to happen there. And needless to say, Funimation, like, as time has gone on, has done nothing but really damage their brand. You know, between the Vic Mignogna thing and kind of the way that Funimation staff tend to treat people, the fact that they fucked with certain dubs when they weren't supposed to, namely Prison School and Dragon Maid. You know, the whole Funimation thing, like sex pest thing, like a lot of people say like Chris Sabin was a sex pest. It was never proven from what I remember, you know. And if, you know, I can't in good conscience make that accusation at Sabin if there's also no evidence against Vic, if you get my meaning, you know. So yeah, when it comes to Funimation, I can't really say that I'm super surprised, because with Sony owning two animation brand or anime brands and streaming platforms, there's no fucking reason to have two of them. There just isn't. There's no way to quantify that, especially when you can just move the stuff over to one platform and just call it a day, you know. DC Douglas was proven to be a sex offender. Is that the case? Let me look that up. Give me just a second here. Let's see here. I'm not finding anything on it. If anybody has a link to actually some evidence of that, tag me in my Discord server, because I don't think that's the case. So again, let's not make accusations in the chat that there's not evidence of. And one thing I should say right now, so I'm going to ask you guys in the chat to please stop that. The simple fact is that, like, you can't be making those accusations about people really anywhere without some sort of evidence of it. And I'm not seeing anything. So there's a lot of bullshit online that gets spread around. You know, anybody can make a claim. Just because a claim gets posted does not mean that that's evidence. You know? I'm not trying to be a dick. I'm just saying, got to be honest about these things. You know, especially if you're going to do it in my chat. You know. But anyway, but the big thing is that Funimation is kind of in a spot where we talked a bit about this with translation not too long ago, when a translator was talking about River City Girls, where he had talked about it as a creative endeavor when it's not a creative endeavor at all. You know, it's just, you're supposed to just say exactly what they said. That's it. You know, you turn it into a creative endeavor and you're lying. And examples of that, of course, I had already mentioned. Dragon Maid, they tried to have Englewood say something about like patriarchy or whatever, and that was not in the original. She never had any attitudes like that whatsoever. There was like a mention of Gamergate in another anime, so stuff like that, you know. And from the Japanese's perspective, you know, the big thing about why this is something that's like the simplest shit. You would think that people would understand it, but they don't. Some people just simply don't ask themselves, why do you translate these things? Why do you dub them over? It's very simple, to sell them across the ocean. So if you're doing something that is going to turn people away from the product, why the fuck would they want to hire you? And that has been a problem with Funimation. You get it every once in a while. And to be honest with you, knowing the Japanese business culture, every once in a while is too often. So, am I crying about Funimation being phased out? No. They've done a lot of dirty shit. And it's honestly just something that needed to end. So, now, granted, I'm not singing the praises of Crunchyroll either. They've got their own problems. But what I'm honestly hoping for is that we see more Japanese production companies just handle dubbing themselves. Have a casting director who knows English, that knows good voice actors, and is actually, in charge of the dubbing process. Sort of like what they did with Gundam Hathaway. And go from there. So, alright. Let's go ahead and move on from there. So, this was some interesting news that I got. Somebody messaged me with this. So Disney. So again, we're not going to start politics. Just as a heads up, we are not going to start politics, and I'm going to say it a third time. We are not going to start politics. There is a sex ed bill that is going in through Florida right now that political activists are trying to label as an anti-LGBT bill because they're basically saying, like, hey, we're not going to teach sex ed to children, And the reaction to that, in my opinion, might be one of the dumbest I've seen in a while. So here it says, the Walt Disney Company announced they will continue to create more LGBTQ plus content as a Florida bill attempts to stop schools teaching about gender identity through the 3rd grade. Which, by the way, that sort of thing has no business in schools in general, in my opinion. That should be between parents and kids. I don't care what your beliefs are. I don't care what you do in your bedroom. I don't care how you see yourself. As long as you're nice to me, I'll be nice to you. However, this sort of stuff is not things that kids need to be learning about. Kids need to be playing with dolls and having fun with their friends and learning their ABCs and all this other shit. They don't need to fucking learn 70,000 fucking Tumblr identities, alright? Like, that just doesn't need to happen. So, of course, because corporations are what they are these days, they are overreacting to it. So they said here, I'm trying to get past the part with the bill. Because I unlike the publication that this was linked me to, which I'm not going to name it because they did a really shitty job with this, the big thing is that it's like they're making a big mistake. So activists demanded the Walt Disney Company and others take a stand against the bill. Scott Maxwell in the Orlando Sentinel declared, Walt Disney World is a prime example. The parks preach inclusion in their marketing campaigns, but Disney has given money to every single sponsor and co-sponsor of this year's infamous bill. Blah-de-blah-de-blah. And in response to the press pressure, because people are saying that they're boycotting Disney and stuff like that, which they're not. Let's be honest. So what Disney Company said is this. We understand how important this issue is to our LGBTQ plus employees and many others. For nearly a century, Disney has been a unifying force that brings people together. We're determined that it remains a place where everyone is treated with dignity and respect. Biggest impact we can have is creating a more inclusive world, is inspiring the content we produce, the welcoming culture we create here, and the support community organizations we support, including those representing the LGBTQ plus community. So this is kind of being translated that they're going to continue with content that is geared towards that sort of thing. Now, it doesn't quite read like that. So actually, I'm going to talk a little bit of shit about the source. The source was Bounding Into Comics, and they translated the statement completely differently. The statement reads like, to me, that they're saying, no, we don't hate gay people. Even though we have given money to several different politicians that might have co-sponsored this bill, we don't hate gay people. That's what it seems like. But let's say that Bounding Into Comics is right. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Let's say that they're right, and Disney starts pushing more LGBTQ plus content. You know what's going to happen? Parents aren't going to take their kids to see it. That is literally what happened. That has happened way too much. Or every time that they've done that, people just don't show up. There were a couple of Disney movies where they said that was a prime thing for them, and they didn't show up. Eternals is another really good example. People didn't show up, because it's one of those things where when you act as if that's the selling point of the film, people aren't going to care because it's not really a selling point of a film, The only time that people are going to be line up in droves for anything to do with lesbians is if it's pornography. Let's be honest, And by the way, I'm not talking shit about anybody's anything. The gimmick is that people, again, we go to the movie theater, we go play video games, we do this, we do that, we interact with escapism to, wait for it, a little bit longer. Open your ears for this one. Escape. Novel concept, right? So, if Disney continued to go down this road, and if they did try to shove it into everything, Disney's just going to lose money. It's just going to happen. Because at the end of the day, these kids don't have any business learning about this stuff because it has nothing to do with them being children. And people just need to let kids be kids. And the simple fact that people just won't allow escapism to be escapism is honestly fucking annoying, Not to mention, and this is the kicker, the reason that companies like Disney and others donate to campaigns of Republicans is very simple. Please lower our taxes. That's it. It's not complicated. It's all about money. And at the end of the day, it's always all about money. And the fact that people can't actually wise up to that, a little disturbing. So, needless to say, I don't really see this going through. Again, I think Bounding honestly needs to work on their coverage. They need a better editor, to be honest with you. But if you continue to pander, people are going to see it as pandering. They're going to want nothing to do with it. So, well, I am storming through these fucking topics a lot faster than I really thought I was going to. Real quick. Couple things to ask you guys. Sometimes these discussions are things that we're very passionate about, but let's not get too salty. There's been a lot of salty shit in the chat today, I've noticed. Let's not get too salty about this stuff. This is just a discussion. It is just a podcast. And I'm here to try to entertain you and discuss these issues and give you guys an interest, a good perspective on things. But let's not get too salty about it, because it can really just kind of drag the mood down for everybody. I was actually in a chat a bit earlier where I got a bit salty in a back and forth with somebody, and it really dragged the mood down, and I still feel like shit about it, because I should... The guy who was fucking around with me is just a cocksucker, and I shouldn't have given him the time of day, you know? So, but, don't make my mistake, is basically what I'm saying. So no doomer, no nothing like that. Let's just relax and have fun. Okay. So, we are back. I really feel like I should play the TJ or CJ from Grand Theft Auto thing. Oh shit, here we go again clip with this. Because I really feel like this happens every time a new FromSoft game comes out. It should have an easy mode. It should have an easy mode. It should have an easy mode. It's the same shit again and again and again. Jim Sterling was the first person to make this argument, and everybody followed suit. And it was just as wrong then as it is now. Some games are hard. Some games give you the chance to make that game experience easier. Not every game needs to be as easy as everything else. Not everything else needs to be super easy. Here's the thing about Souls games, and FromSoft in general. Takeo Miyazaki has flat out said this. The design philosophy is they make it challenging. That's specifically the word he uses. They make it challenging so that when you obtain victory, it feels better. It feels like you really accomplished something. And I'll be honest, he's right. Every single time I've ever beaten a boss in any Souls game, as long as the fight wasn't cheap, I feel like I really accomplished something. Like I figured something out that I hadn't figured out before. Whether it's a way to cheese the boss or a way to just beat him. You know, it always feels good. 420 Gunny puts something in as a reference to the last topic after the $5 donation, so thank you for that. Says, case in point, Legend of Korra, she didn't get revealed as a lesbian until the very end of Season 4, end of the series. And before that, Seasons 2 through 4, it was very subtle. Seasons 3 and 4 had next to no romance, and I was okay with that. Well, there you go. You know, the point it didn't revolve around her sexuality, basically. Back on the topic at hand, though. The big thing with that is it's sort of like if any of you guys have caught Bully Night over on Graded's channel, when it comes to Bully Night, you'll go back if you watch the first time I ever beat Tofu in a fight on Bully Night. For those who remember those streams, I had to work my fucking ass off to beat him. I had just picked up Biken. She had just come out. It was the first day. And the previous week, I had been trying to play Soul. And I was having a really hard time with it. Really struggling. I started playing Biken. I started getting better. Starting feeling more comfortable with her. And at the end of the night, I finally beat Tofu. And I just was so excited and elated by it. That I couldn't contain myself. But that's the point of getting better at something, is you get the eventual accomplishment of victory. And it feels very good. You know, compare that to, like, whenever I play, I'll do, like, dailies in Gears of War. What I'll do is I'll just play a quick horde mode match of 10 rounds and just kill shit. And I do it basically just to do it. Just to unlock characters and shit. But it's not really a challenge. It's not really that hard at this point. And as such, it's not really as entertaining. Now, granted, I play it for a different reason. It's just for something to relax with. And the thing is that game developers should not feel pressured to alter their art to suit the needs of a few journalists who aren't very good at video games. And by the way, I'm not shaming either when I say that. Some people just aren't good at video games. You know? Some people pick up and play games and they struggle for whatever reason. Maybe they don't have the hand-eye coordination. Maybe they didn't grow up with video games like someone like myself did, or something like that, and they're just not as good as other people. And by the way, that's fine. Not everybody is. And as such, not every game is for everybody else. You know? It's just not going to happen. So you just don't have whatever it takes to get to that next level. It's sort of like my level at fighting games. There might be a point in Guilty Gear Strive where I get to Celestial. It might happen. Maybe not. I think I'm probably going to top out at about 9 or 10 in the towers. You know? Probably going to top out right there. And that's fine. I'm still pretty good at the game. You know? Am I ever going to fight at EVO? No. That's never going to happen. But I can still play it and enjoy it at my skill level. And it is what it is, you know? And some people just aren't going to even get there. Some people are going to be stuck at other places, you know? And actually, Brian Gilmartin in the chat makes a really good point. He says being bad at video games isn't the problem, it's not being honest about it. And that's the other thing. It's like, if you say to yourself, I'm not good at video games, I wish Souls games were easier, I could kind of understand it. You know? Because there's a little sympathy there. Because you could still watch somebody stream it and something like that, but it's not the same. I get that. At the same time, though, it's not... You didn't create it. And there needs to be a level of respect for the creator and for what they're doing and why they're doing it. And the fact of the matter is that this is not one of those things where you're going to get developers to change their ways on this. They wouldn't allow a gorilla to compete. They'd just call Animal Control. That was a good one. But yeah, it's one of those things where there's a purpose to this. You know, in fact, in the narrative of every Souls game I've ever played, the difficulty was actually part of the story. The struggle was part of the story. You know, you constantly are supposed to be fighting out from underneath. You're always the underdog. You're always the guy. You're not a super soldier. You become one as time goes on, but you have to grow to get there. And if you don't do that, then you're a dead man. That's basically it. And you go until you get there. I get it. Not everybody is going to want that experience, but this idea that you need to be catered to. Ugh, I felt better. Miss me with that shit. Honestly, get that shit out of here. Just fuck that noise. Every single bit of it. You know, it's not the game's fault at all. It's just not. It's not the game's fault at all. It's, you know, it's just not for you, and that's okay. You know, but that needs to start becoming okay. Because I'm gonna be honest with any games journalist out there, speaking as somebody who was among that number at some point, games developers don't have to cater to you. They cater to their audience. And the Souls games have a massive audience that aren't complaining about the difficulty, by the way. They might complain about some elements of the game that can actually be pretty cheap, which in every Soul game has those things. Like, there's some places like where you can get stun locked into oblivion. That feels cheap. I get that. You know, but they're not under the obligation to just make the game where there's a fucking baby mode. You know? Yeah, the Capra Demon fight's a really good example of that. So it needs to just Let's put the Kaputski on it, seriously, because it's getting to a point where this discussion happens every time. FromSoft is not going to bend on it, and they honestly have no incentive to bend on it either, because let's see what Elden Ring sales are at right now. Fucking Digital Trends says, this is such a stupid fucking headline. It says, Elden Ring sales data highlights its mind-boggling success. It's not mind-boggling. These games have been popular for a while. 600,000 concurrent players on Steam. Let's see if I can find numbers. It was larger than Call of Duty Vanguard's launch. Larger than Horizon Forbidden West's launch. And with Forbidden West, they actually sold more than double of what Forbidden West did. I'm trying to find exact numbers. But that's just UK data. Most of the sales are on Xbox as well. So it's pretty substantial. So, and it says here, okay. Oh, wow. This is insane. Elden Ring has sold, this is according to Dark Side of Gaming. Elden Ring has reportedly sold 10 million copies on PC alone this week. 10 million. Why the fuck would you change the formula? You know? And so this is what I'm going to ask any game journalist out there in regards to this sort of an argument. Because I'm going to put this on my main channel. Why exactly are you asking Coca-Cola to make new Coke again? I would like an answer to that question. Why are you asking Coca-Cola to make new Coke again? Because it's what you're asking. That is exactly what you're asking. You're asking them to give up the formula that has brought them so much success for a few people who write for Kotaku. Afraid I'm gonna have to ask you to eat a cup of hickory smoked horse buttholes. Alright? Like, Jesus tap dancing Christ. Fuck off with that noise. Alright, before we go into Q&A for today, without Hatman, there's a lot less to discuss. We're going to do a comic update. So, for those of you in here who have not backed Englewood Book 2 yet, the link is down in the bottom right of the description. And, we are actually getting closer and closer to 15K, which is where I'd like to get to before we close it out. We have brought on a new artist for the book to do the second and third sections of it, named Rafael Trestrani. And I've updated the page with his art as well, just a couple of sample pages. So you've got the introduction of the character Megan, who is the Saint's love interest. And then this page right here, which is just fucking incredible. I mean, I don't think I need words here, honestly. Like, it is fucking amazing what he's doing with the book. And of course, Brian's art is amazing too. It's just a different style. So, either way, the book is looking amazing. I'm very happy with how it's being put together. We are on track to have it out by summer. So if you haven't picked the book up yet, please do so. Link is there. And then, of course, the mailing list for 3 Nights, 4 Days is up. We are at 91 signups. I'm trying to get it to 100. If somebody could actually share the direct link for this in the chat, I would really appreciate it. Of course, the team on this is Preston Acevedo, myself, and Oliver Liarche. Eric Weathers will be returning to letter the book as well. So the team is 100% the same as it was with the last book. And if you sign up for the mailing list, what you get is virgin covers, the opportunity to get these. So, if you're on the mailing list, we are going to have a box tier. The mailing list people are the only people who get these. They're the only ones. People who buy the box aren't going to get these. Aren't going to get virgin covers. There will be two of them. There will be one like this, and then there will be another one that's a sketch cover, just black and whites. So, as you can see, let me open the bag real quick. The print quality on these is very pretty. And this is basically what it'll look like. It'll be completely clear of any trade dress or anything like that. There will be descriptions on the back of the book still. And then, of course, there will be this for your organization. It'll have the name of it on the spine. But needless to say, it is a very pretty book. And I can only imagine what the second book is going to look like the cover. Preston described it to me, what he's doing. And I will grab that for you. But if you have not got on the mailing list, please do get on it. That way you'll know when the book goes live, if nothing else. And we got a lot of really cool stuff. This next campaign, we will actually have 3 Nights t-shirts as well, that'll be available for you. So, like book 1, it is going to be 45 pages of blood, guts, and metal. Team returns. This is going to be the story that has a lot of heart and soul in it. You're going to get a lot of background of why what happened in the first book happened. And essentially, this is like the Kill Bill Part 2 of 3 Nights. And a lot of it focuses around the villainess of the story, the Midnight Witch. So, plus, one of the posters that will be done for it is going to be done by my friend Joe Ball, who is an amazing artist. And I'm looking to get 2 more prints done by 2 other dudes. The other print that's going to be done is by Bogdan Digital Art, Bogdan Rizea. And this is the work in progress of that print. Now, if this looks familiar to you, the pose and everything, there's a reason for that. Each one of the prints, which will be 6x9s, are homages to covers from Berserk. Because, for those who don't know, me, Oliver, and Preston have decided to dedicate 3 Nights, 4 Days as a series to the memory of Kentaro Miura. He was one of our biggest influences as creators. Me, Preston, and Oliver. We're all big Berserk fans. And, you know, in a lot of ways, like, the people who are inspired by something are part of that person's legacy, and we really feel like we owe it to Miura's memory to put out the best book possible. And, you know, we're going to be getting artists to work with us on this to make this book, this campaign, even better, and give them the opportunity to honor Miura as well through it. So, hopefully, if Miura Sensei was still with us, he would look at this and smile. So, needless to say, get on that mailing list. If you want to get the link to the mailing list, it's just / mailing list. Anytime that you're in a chat and you see that thing down in the lower left-hand corner with that badass art, which somebody actually mentioned what it's the panel that it's from. Now They Know Fear. It's such a good book. It's so fucking good. And it's not just because I wrote it. It's good because Preston and Oliver have made me better as a creator. They really have. They have pushed me to be the best I can be, you know. And I those guys are going to be my friends, hopefully forever, because they have done great at this book, and they've really done an amazing job of bringing my vision to life in a way that I didn't think was possible. So, it's definitely something to buy. Okay. It is time for Q&A. So, as always, we're going to start off with the Discord server. If you are a subscriber to the channel, you can get into the Discord server. All you have to do is link your Twitch account to your Discord in your settings, and then my server will pop up. All you got to do is just introduce yourself, and then you're good to go. And there are benefits aside from just getting to talk to me on occasion and getting access to me. We do a weekly show every Monday called Mecca Mondays that I put together for everybody, and it's always a blast. Thank you, Servant, for the gift sub, by the way. Hopefully Xavier will enjoy that. Good shooting. But let's go ahead and get into the questions. I'll be doing Discord server first, and then I'll do the chat afterwards. So, Acorn Soup wants to know, thoughts on doing a monthly creative writing club stream where you read and review original short stories, 10,000 words or less, submitted to you via a dedicated channel on the Discord server. Not a good idea. First off, 10,000 words or less on a stream would legitimately be me just reading, and my voice would give out after a while. So that's problem number one. Problem number two is, and this is going to sound dickish, but I don't mean it to, I don't help people with the creative process of their works much anymore. And that, in my opinion, would be kind of giving away free editing help. And I don't do that anymore. A lot of the reason being is because people that I have helped in the past have knifed me in the back. Whether I have helped them promote their stuff, whether I have helped give them tips on improving their art or improving their writing or things like that, almost every time, knife right in my back for whatever reason, you know? And I'm done with it. So I don't help people with that much anymore, except people that I know are going to be are friends of mine or people that, you know, I trust aren't going to do exactly, give me the knife in the back. The one guy I can think of that isn't like a guy I'm super close to that has taken my advice and listened to me and has had my back the whole time is Daniel Parker. In regards to people that I've helped with their writing, it's Daniel. Daniel's the one guy, which is why I appreciate him more than he probably even knows. I don't always say it, but I really appreciate the fact that he does that. That he's gone out of his way not to disrespect me or to or anything like that. You know, he's always been a super respectful guy. He's always listened to my advice and things like that. He's really, really good guy. You know, and I can't say the same of everybody else. Thankfully, at least some of the people that have stabbed me in the back have apologized for it, but, you know, I'm kind of done giving help in that regard. You know, it's just not going to happen anymore unless it's with my friends, you know, because I can't trust anybody, you know, I just can't. It sucks. I wish I could. I wish I could help people more than I do, but I'm not at a point where I can do that anymore. To be honest, there's a part of me that thinks that even nowadays I help too much. If people want me to edit things, they can pay me. And then that's a different story. You know? Because that's labor. Servant wants to know. Real Life Stone said to hold the nine-tailed fox demon broken in half, had the rope around it removed. How many new manga or anime do you think will spawn from this year alone? Nine-tailed fox is a pretty popular one, but I don't know if a lot of people are going to do it after the whole the fact that Naruto basically beat it to fucking death. So I don't really think we're going to see a lot. 420 Gunning wants to know, since Lord of the Rings is considered the best in literature regarding the fantasy genre, what do you think is the best sci-fi in literature? For him, it's either Frank Herbert's Dune series, with some of the Star Wars books as a close second of the old canon lore that is. When it comes to sci-fi, I think that, like, if you're going to say, like, what had the biggest influence, I think that Frank Herbert's Dune would definitely be what I would pick. Um, at least when it comes to, like, the written word. Other than that, I would say, like, Out of the Silent Planet. C.S. Lewis' Space Trilogy is another really good one. That one's my favorite, personally. Just Out of the Silent Planet specifically is really good. Admittedly, I don't read a lot of other sci-fi. Most sci-fi I've taken in is through television shows and through films. So, because like my favorite sci-fi franchise ever is Gundam. You know, it has taken over my love of Star Wars, mostly because Star Wars kind of fucked itself again. So, it's weird with me in Star Wars. Like, I'll always love the original trilogy. I still have my Drew Struzan posters over here. But on the flip side, in fact, when this happened, when the cops came in to talk to me and my neighbor, like, they even remarked, I'm like, wow, you really love this stuff. I'm like, yeah, it's been a long time favorite of mine. And I'm like, every single pick of all these posters has been deliberate, you know? There's a very specific reason I bought them. So, but, the big, but yeah, like, most of the sci-fi I've taken in is through, like, film, anime, television series, stuff like that. So, Diva wants to know, considering how the Den of Vipers Funimation is going to be merged with Crunchyroll, how do you think this is going to affect anime? Hopefully it'll spawn fan-based organizations to provide more accurate subbing or dubbing than corporations with an agenda. How do you think it'll affect the case that Vic is pursuing? I don't know how much it's going to affect Vic's case. I would have to ask Ty Beard that one, which I have the ability to ask him that question, possibly, because I could ask Nick Rekieta if he could put me in conversation with Ty, because Nick and I are cool. So, but I don't know if I'd be able to. Like, it's a question mark because Nick is really busy these days. Regardless, what I'm hoping for is that, I mentioned it earlier, but I'll say it again, is that the companies that are hiring these, you know, dubbing, instead of hiring out a company like Funimation, or in this case now Crunchyroll, instead of doing that, they sign distribution contracts with them, and then they handle the dubbing themselves. Because if you watch Gundam Hathaway, the dubbing on it is really fucking good. It's one of the best I've ever seen. Another good one is Genocidal Organ, which is done by the same director. The dubbing is really fucking good. A lot of these were not handled by Funimation. They were handled by Sunrise getting together a voice acting director that picked the cast and recording studio which it was dubbed at. So, also, just to let you know, like, how much I fucking have, like, spare Gundam parts around. This is the spare half of a head of a Crossbone Gundam. So, I actually plan on making a custom Crossbone at some point. Derek Mozzarella wants to know thoughts on what somebody's first Bioware RPG should be. He's got a bunch of them for dirt cheap on last Steam sale. Not sure which one to start with. KOTOR. KOTOR is the best place to start when it comes to Bioware's classics. So that would be my pick. I also think KOTOR is their best one. Truthfully. In the same way, I also think KOTOR 2 is Obsidian's best game. You know, some people are going to disagree with me, and a lot of people are going to think that are going to say it's either Torment Tides of Numenera, or they're going to say that it's New Vegas. But I think KOTOR 2 is their best one. It's definitely Chris Avalone's best writing. It's KOTOR 2. Someday, I don't know if I'm ever going to get the opportunity to do this, I was supposed to have a sit-down interview with Chris Avallone back when I worked for Blistered Thumbs. Didn't get the chance to get it done because they fired me. I'm going to try to contact him again at some point and interview him about KOTOR 2. I want to discuss his writing on that. And I actually kind of want to discuss like his writing on that, on Planescape Torment, on things like that, and get his perspective on that as a writer, and see if I can just like fucking take notes. So yeah, KOTOR's my pick. Melee Brawler wants to know, since we're talking about difficulty in games, what do you think about the collections of older video games that are tough, known for being tough as nails, like Mega Man or Castlevania? Adding options that make these classic games easier to play. Is that okay, or do you believe that cheapens the original experience? I don't really think it cheapens the original experience, and there's a reason why. The reason that they were as difficult as they were was not necessarily for an artistic reason. It was because of Blockbuster. Believe it or not, that's actually the reason, and that's and the reason we know that is oddly enough because of the creators of Battletoads. They actually flat out said the reason that they made Battletoads so difficult is for when people go and rent it from Blockbuster or any other place you could rent video games at the time, that when they brought it back, they hadn't beaten it. And they think to themselves, I really need to beat this game. So they go buy it. That's why they did that. That's why those games were so fucking hard. But as game ownership and console ownership became more prevalent as years gone on, because of inflation or what have you, that became a lot cheaper to own. Then we started to see games get easier and easier because there was no reason to make them that hard. So, SGD wants to know: are there any games that you have played you wished had a harder difficulty mode? Not off the top of my head, to be honest with you. Reason for that is, I think a lot of games that I've played, most games I've played, in fact, have a difficulty slider. So there really hasn't been a reason for there to be, like, it to be any harder, really. I don't know if I've ever played a game that's too easy. I've had games that, like, they started out really easy and then they got, tougher as it went on. Or they're easy for me now after I've played them a while, like the Arkham games. If anybody has watched me play the Arkham games, some of you can attest to this. You might want to attest to this, just so people will actually believe me. If you've ever seen me play an Arkham game, I rip through them. Like they're not even there. And a lot of that is because I've beaten every single one of them on hardest difficulty. So, if I remember right, I beat Arkham Origins on the hardest difficulty without ever dying. So that game would have to get super fucking hard, but even then, it's just like, I'm just good at those games, Alright, on to the chat. Micah is Batman. I don't know about that, but, my parents are still alive. So, let's see what the chat's got. Okay, so here's one from Crystal Hydra. Going forward, should the MCU start making villain-focused films like Joker for big names like Doom to show their descent into villainy, or characters like Silver Surfer and the Thunderbolts showing bad things they've done so that their redemption feels more earned? I definitely think that there are certain villains in Marvel that they either, if you're going to introduce them, you can't introduce them quickly. You need to introduce them over time or give them their own film. Doctor Doom is a really good example of that. Magneto is another. Assuming that they don't make the mistake of hiring Giancarlo Esposito as Magneto. Now, nothing against Giancarlo Esposito. He's an amazing actor. But he's not Magneto. I don't even think he would fit as Magneto, even if they did race swap him. Which, race swapping a Jew is kind of dirty. Because the whole story with him is the fact that his worldview is because he was thrown into a concentration camp. Those characters deserve to either be built up over several films, like Thanos was, or get their own origin story in their own movie because of how deep they are. Because you're not going to really have the opportunity to do that the way that you would like to through one film. So the answer is like certain. Yes, I agree with that to degrees. Leonardo Wan wants to know, what is considered the worst cliche in anime in my opinion, outside of fan service and hot girls? For me, it's the read the manga type ending. Well, the read the manga type ending, sometimes they can't avoid it because they just don't get the funds to continue the series. Like, that's part of the reason why Gundam Thunderbolt as a manga has continued to go on, but they've never done any animation for it. It's just they can't get the funds for it for whatever reason, and Sunrise has no interest in doing it. So that's unavoidable. My least favorite trope is high schools. I hate the fact that everything happens in high school. That is one thing that honestly bugs the fuck out of me. So let's see here. One Path wants to know, what do you think is the best antidote for those who suffer from pride, especially those the intellectual type? The one thing that breaks someone's pride the most is when they lose. That's basically it. The one thing that breaks someone's pride the most is when they lose. And people who aren't super, into, or who have never had to lose hard like that before, are always the most arrogant people that you'll ever meet. A good race swap for Magneto could work as a Rwandan. Eventually, Holocaust survivors are going to be too old to be believable. Comic books can always find bullshit. Trust me, I know. I'm a comic book writer. I know very well. Let's see here. What was that one from Will Geary? What creative beside... That's not a bad suggestion, though, Dee Dee, but I just disagree on that level. Besides from George Lucas, you think works better with a bit of a leash on them? Vince McMahon. Who's somebody else? And John Carmack. Be my picks. John Carmack, definitely. Not John Carmack. Fuck, what's his name? John Romero. Carmack was the leash. John Romero needed a leash. But anyway, back on the pride thing. I've met a lot of people in my lifetime that because they are the reason that they are arrogant and the reason that they are pricks is because they have no consequences in their lives. And that's what pride will do, is you are convinced that you are untouchable. And some people out there seem untouchable for whatever reason. And eventually what will happen is they will lose. And that will inevitably be what brings them down. They will lose at something. And because at the end of the day, like, somebody who wins all the time, they're going to ignore how close the win is or if they almost lost. All they care is that they won. My favorite example of that is a football scenario. It was one Super Bowl from years ago where the Patriots were playing the Rams, and the Patriots barely won the Super Bowl. They won by 3 points. And they were talking like they were the greatest thing since, like, the 85 Bears. You know, they barely got there and they barely won, and they're talking about being like the best thing ever. You know, were they? Obviously not. You know, nobody even talks about that year's Patriots team because they weren't that great. They were good, but they weren't that good. It was a very close season. You know, there were a lot of really good teams that year. But all they care about is that they had the ring on their finger. You know, you have to actually lose to bring that pride down. It has to be an L. You know, and trust me, I hate prideful people. Mostly because it's reflective of how I hate my own pride more often than not. But, you know, that person has to lose, you know, before that's going to happen. So, all right. I think I got all of the questions. Got Crystal Hydras, got Leonardo Wands. Got all the ones from... It's a Discord server? I think that's pretty much it. So... You're opting not to repeat yours? Well, now I'm going to look for it, Mata. Yeah. Something I've noticed can be very biased to the point where I can be very vindictive towards stuff I don't like. How can I avoid doing that? The best one that I would... the best piece of advice I could give is you have to come to a point where you actually don't care what other people what other people like. You know? And sometimes it even helps to actually try to think of what they might like about it. Sometimes it's simple. Sometimes it's complex. You know. So sometimes you just have to ask them. It's like, what, you know, I'm not too big into this. What's the draw here? And it might not click. It might click. Like, one thing for me specifically is... I don't really get fan service games, you know, or I could never get into them, or dating sims. Like it just never clicked for me. But I understand why some people play them now. Some people just like tits. It's that simple, you know. Is it a little weird? Yeah, but there's things about me that are a little weird too. You know, I'm a gore hound. Some people think that's really fucking weird. You know? So, this is one of those things where, you know, empathy is a word that gets tossed around too much, but sometimes you gotta just learn a bit of that. You know? And a little bit goes a long way. So. So, yeah. And Dini, that's actually some pretty decent insight. He says, I know this is going to sound cheesy because he's an atheist, but pride is the root of all sins, for lack of a better term, because you feel like you deserve everything. Yeah, exactly. You feel like everybody needs to bow to you because you are so as good as you are, whatever. So, yeah. That's also why people find it annoying, because they don't owe you shit. So... You know, my thing is like, I don't owe you adoration. If you want anything from me, you can eat these nuts. Okay? So, all right. So before we take off, I owe you guys a cringe clip, and unless somebody donates another $20, that I think I only owe one. And Brain could not find anything. So, somebody in the Discord server finds one. Now's your chance. I'm going to give you 2 minutes. From when I just set, from when you just heard that. If you can find it within 2 minutes, throw it into the Discord server, and I'll have a look at it. And Changus gets it. All right. And it's Doggo-chan. All right. Let's see what's going on with this one. It's only a 15-second clip. I'm surprised by that. All right. Oh, that's an ad. Never mind. Okay, it's a 1-minute clip. 1 second here. And let's have a look.
Two people, great on the rival, kill me. Kill! Okay?
She's trying so hard.
Okay? Able-chan? Able-chan? Go, boom, go, straight, okay? Okay. Okay, together, people, together. No, yes. Kill!
Good lord. What the fuck?
Kill you! Fuck.
What the hell? That F-bomb, though.
Okay.
Oh, my word. Oh, man. All right, folks. Well, that brings an end to our show for today. I want to thank everybody for coming out. I want to thank Servant for the gift sub, 420 Gunny, and Brainbox for their generous donations as well. Trust me, I'm still at a point, even though I've started the new job, every little bit helps. Like, seriously. Money's still tight right now. So, I actually need to postpone getting my COVID vaccination because I haven't been able to find a ride. And I need the money that I have to buy groceries. So, that's kind of a bummer. But I appreciate everybody for coming out, to say the least. Hopefully I'll have the archive up on YouTube within the next couple of days. Next stream, the stream schedule is going to actually be different. I will post it tomorrow on Twitter and in my Discord server. Basically, because my work schedule is the way that it is, certain days I'm not going to be here. So, with that said, my name is Micah Curtis, your favorite vanilla gorilla. Everybody give your well wishes to Hatman. Like I said earlier, the reason he's not here, sadly, is because there was a death in the family. But let's find somebody to raid before I take out. Or take off, rather. Not take out. Who is live right now? Martyr is not, surprisingly. But she hasn't been feeling that great lately, so it's kind of understandable. Let's have a look around, shall we? Let's see here. How about we read somebody that Martyr knows? Let's read Noriko. And the raid message is going to be Incoming Crusade. I just put it right there. You've never watched Noriko. She's also known as Bat at video games. She's hilarious. You're going to like her, to say the least. So, on that note, I'm going to go ahead and hit the start raid button. I will see you guys over there. Have some fun. Be nice. And we'll start in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'll see you guys next time.